Honorary Doctor of Science degree to Ms. Sandra Mesics. For 15 years, Sandy has been director of St. Luke's School of Nursing in Bethlehem, the oldest continually operating nursing school in the country. Assigned male at birth, Sandy made a medical transition in the early 1970s and became active in the Transsexual Action Organization, the first national organization representing the transgender community. She is recognized by linguists as one of the first individuals to use the term transgender, which appeared in a 1975 article which she wrote for Image magazine, an early transgender publication for which she served as executive editor. In the early 1990s, when the AIDS epidemic hit the LGBT community, Sandy and her spouse felt compelled to join the team that created the St. Stephen's AIDS Ministry in Miami, Florida, providing housing and medical-related support to AIDS victims. This experience sparked a passion for patient care. In 1992, Sandy graduated magna cum laude from Barry University, becoming a registered nurse, and in 1997 earned a master's degree in nurse midwifery from the University of Miami. In 2001, she joined St. Luke's University Health Network as an instructor before being named director of the School of Nursing in 2004. She has served as treasurer of the Pennsylvania League for Nursing and is a member of the Sigma Theta Tau Honor Society of Nursing, the National League for Nursing, the National Coalition of Hospital-Associated Schools and Colleges of Nursing, the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, and the Abortion Care Network. Her research focuses on workforce diversity, specifically efforts to increase the number of Latinx and African American registered nurses. Her current scholarly inquiry involves utilizing the Myers-Briggs Personality Inventory to facilitate nursing education. Sandy lives in Bethlehem with her spouse Sarah, who joins her today, along with her daughter Amy. Thank you for being here as well. I now welcome Dr. Miller back to the podium and ask Ms. Mesics to stand with me.
On recommendation of the nominating committee and with the approval of the Board of Trustees, and by virtue of the authority granted this institution and vested in Dr. Katz by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, he confers on Sandra Mesics the degree of Doctor of Sciences honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. In testimony thereof, he asks that you be vested with the hood symbolic of the degree and present you with an official diploma.
Happy Valentine's Day. Having had a chance to spend some time with you, I can feel the love in the room. President Katz, Board Chair Sanson, trustees, deans, faculty, students, and friends, I am honored and humbled to be here today to receive this honor that in no way do I feel I deserve. I hope that after these remarks, you won't decide to take it away from me and throw me out on the street. It is fitting that I come to a university with a rich heritage of starting as the first college of pharmacy in the United States almost 200 years ago. I have the privilege of serving as the director of the oldest school of nursing in the United States in continuous operation for 135 years. Both of our institutions have been providing quality education for future scientists and healthcare providers by focusing on hands-on and experiential learning. We are involved in the business of educating healthcare professionals at a very interesting time. Never before have we had technology that can allow a person's medical history to be instantly accessible across the country. We have smart IV pumps and barcoding technology that significantly reduces medication errors. We have robots that can package and deliver medications, serve as a remote substitute for a healthcare provider, and even perform surgery. The danger there is that we healthcare providers are becoming computer technicians. We rely on machines to diagnose illnesses, where once we used our senses of sight, hearing, and touch. We focus on our computer screens rather than looking our patients in the eye and taking a moment to watch what their expressions and body language are telling us. You can step from behind the computer screen to experience compassion with and for our patients. I have experienced that compassion from both sides. As a student seeking to transition my male body into alignment with my female sense of identity, and since as a nurse to my patients. I hope that you will leave this auditorium today with a new sense of what it means to be a caregiver and the meaning your empathy can provide for your patients. I first came to Philly in 1972 as a 20-year-old student in my last year of college. I was seeking medical care as my gender dysphoria was getting so great it was interfering with my daily life and my ability to concentrate on my studies and complete my degree. I came to Philly seeking answers and hoping to find compassion and understanding. And fortunately, I found it. I found it in South Philadelphia at a rundown, nondescript office of a general practice doctor of osteopathic medicine. I went in, gave my name to the receptionist, who it turns out was the doctor's wife, sat in a chair in a big waiting room and waited my turn. This doctor had no special training in transgender care. He had one patient from the neighborhood who came to him seeking hormone treatment, and from that point, his practice grew to the point where I was about his 150th trans patient. But this doctor had one thing that counted the most. He had the compassion and understanding to look me in the eye, look at my body language, listen to me, ask me the critical questions about what I hope to achieve, and to offer me the treatment that ultimately enabled me to be here speaking with you today. I left his office that day after getting my first estrogen injection, prescriptions for some more hormones, and by the way, after paying a whopping $7 for the office visit. But more importantly, I left with a new sense of hope that my problem could be resolved, and gratitude that I had found a provider who not only had medical skills, but practiced those skills with compassion and caring. After graduation, I relocated here and was happy to call Philly home for the next decade. I began my transition here in the anonymity that only a large city could provide. Armed with the hubris that only a young person with a BS degree in psychology could possess, I started a magazine for transgender individuals such as myself. You see, in those pre-internet days, it was hard to find information that we needed. How to find healthcare providers, how you could eliminate a beard or cover it with makeup, how to dress in to blend in and become invisible, passing along information, celebrating legal wins and passing along cautionary tales of harassment, hatred, and bigotry, and mainly to make interpersonal connections and know that we weren't alone. Easy peasy, right? Well, all that was nice, but I still had to pay the rent. And I wasn't ready to transition full-time, so I worked days in boy mode, selling cheese and making hoagies in a Center City gourmet shop. That, by the way, was voted the best hoagie in Philadelphia by Philadelphia Magazine. I maintained enough male clothing to go to work, but that was about the extent of my male wardrobe. The estrogen was doing its thing, and I had to wear looser and looser shirts. One day, out of the blue, the Board of Health showed up and told me that I had to go to the public health department immediately and have a chest x-ray. At the time, this was required of all food service employees to rule out tuberculosis. If I didn't get the x-ray, I wouldn't be allowed to work. I schlepped over to the health department and found myself in the men's section at a long line of men waiting to go into the x-ray room. Oh, and we were told to take off our shirts. That day, I tried to master the art of becoming invisible while attempting to work my way backward in the line and dealing with my mounting levels of epinephrine and panic. I was at the back of the line when an African-American LPN came out to see how many of us were left. I was last in line and the only one with my shirt still on. She took one look at me, ushered me out of the line and around the corner to a private dressing booth. She gave me a paper exam gown and told me I should take off my shirt, put the gown on. She said, "Wait in here for me, I will be back for you." In a little while, she came back. The line was gone, and I was the last patient. She took me by the arm and just said, "How long have you been on hormones, honey?" As she walked me to the x-ray room. I have never forgotten that gesture of kindness and compassion, and I have thanked her in my heart many times since. A couple of years later, after my own transition, I was lucky enough to return the favor. During the daytime, I was working for the Philadelphia School District as a substitute teacher, and at night, I drove a yellow cab. I picked up a young trans woman and her male companion in what is now known as the neighborhood around 13th and Locust, but at that time, it was an area for LGBT hustlers and their clientele. They told me to just drive around Northeast Philly. But soon something went horribly wrong in the back seat. They started arguing and throwing punches at each other. I found a place to pull over, got out, and tried to separate them. Bad move. I ended up losing a part of a front tooth, but I did get the client out of the cab and assessed that the trans woman was in pretty bad shape. I laid her on the back seat and rushed her to the emergency room at Pennsylvania Hospital, where I knew she could get health care by a team that was knowledgeable about trans folks. I had to have my tooth fixed, but I did get that woman to the hospital. I felt as though I was able to provide a moment of compassion and caring in that individual's life. I sometimes wonder what happened to her. Trans people are so in need of compassion and kindness. A large study of over 6,000 transgender individuals revealed that while in grades K through 12, 54% of trans youth were verbally harassed, 24% were physically attacked, and 13% were sexually assaulted. Even more disheartening, at least to me, is that 28% of transgender individuals were subject to verbal harassment in medical settings, and 2% were physically attacked in medical settings. Being harassed and assaulted when looking for a bit of compassion and caring is truly tragic. Transgender individuals suffer from high rates of poverty, homelessness, substance abuse, physical or sexual violence, discrimination, and bullying. Most shockingly of all is the finding that a staggering 41% of respondents reported attempting suicide. Compare this with the incidence of 4.6% in the general population. But we know that there was a lower than average prevalence of lifetime suicide attempts among respondents who said that their family relationships had remained strong after coming out. Caring and compassion helps prevent suicide. In 2014, Time magazine declared that we were at a transgender tipping point. Trans issues were becoming visible. For better or worse, celebrities like Caitlyn Jenner, Laverne Cox, and Chelsea Manning were making the news. Transgender care was covered under the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, and in some instances, Medicaid. There was a boom in medical and surgical advances that could feminize the most masculine face, or to stop puberty so that a transgender child could have a timeout before deciding on their course of action. Things were pretty optimistic. But since then, there's been a backlash. Trans people are now on the defensive. Bathroom bills, bans on serving in the military, gender markers on passports, denial of medical care, and denial of service. We are now in what is being called the transgender dipping point. Trans people have often been described as the canary in the coal mine. When attacks occur against human dignity and freedom of expression, They generally start with the most vulnerable individuals. But do not confuse vulnerability with weakness. Transgender individuals are some of the most resilient, courageous, and talented people I have ever met. And if we are given a seat at the table, a place on the boardroom, a podium in the lecture hall, a place on the healthcare team, or a place on the research bench, we will bring that talent and resilience to the people we treat, the people we teach, and the research that we carry out. I believe so strongly in the power of caring and compassion because I know what a lifesaver they were for me. I believe my own experiences have helped me become a more compassionate provider. Now, I've taught nursing students and I've taught advanced practice nursing students. I've often wondered if compassion and caring can be taught. Recently, I did a Medline and Cinol search for teaching compassion and got 16 hits. Not much. When I searched teaching caring, I got 48 hits. So this is not exactly a fertile area of research. I can't help but wonder if maybe compassion and caring are also in a dipping point. In the news recently, we have seen an increase in interpersonal violence, incivility, and intolerance. If this trend is unchecked, what will it portend for our nation, not to mention our future healthcare providers? As teachers, administrators, staff members, and role models, we have the unique ability to not only teach the scientific method and to teach evidence-based practice, but we have the responsibility to model caring and compassion in every encounter, every day, and with everyone we interact with. We have the duty to roll back this tide of hatred. Recently, I've been doing per diem shifts in the recovery room of an abortion clinic. I can tell you tales of the names I've been called and the verbal abuse I've received on my walk from the car to the clinic, but instead I want to tell you about a patient I took care of. She was in her late 40s and had teenage and young adult children. She hadn't used any birth control in years because she was told she could never get pregnant. But here she was dealing with a decision that no woman takes lightly. I cared for her after her procedure, made sure she was stable, gave her tissues and held her hand while she cried about the hard decision she had made. I didn't think I was doing anything special for her. As I walked her out of the recovery room, we had a quiet moment together. She said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" Now, I've heard that a lot of times in my life. So I knew what to expect. "Yes, I'm trans," I replied. She gave me a hug and said, "My teenager just came out to me as trans. I want to support her. What can I do?" I didn't have a lot of time to think of an answer, but I replied, "Just be there for her when the times get tough. Keep telling her that you love her and treat her with respect, kindness, and compassion. Come to think of it, shouldn't we always be doing this with each other? Thank you for this wonderful honor, this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. But more importantly, thank you for the work you are doing in educating the compassionate and caring leaders of tomorrow."